Welcome to the Right Stuff, the Empire Games Blood Bowl podcast. The first week's been played. I'm Nathan, your host.
And I'm Chase, the person the podcast is named after.
He's passed his trial of combat to enter the podcast. With a little bit of spoilers here, he bested me in the last week, so he's fought his way onto the podcast. And so we just kind of let him in here. He lives here now.
All skill, no luck. That's me.
So we are more or less got a full week of games under our belt, and it's time to wildly speculate about what's going to happen through the rest of the season based off of our sample size of 1. At this rate, I'm going to end up 0-13.
Nice, and I'm undefeated.
So we are going to chat a little bit later on. The working title for this episode was The Scoundrels Guide to Dastardly Play. Playing Dirty and Blood Bowl, learning from the master.
No clue why I'm here.
Must be unrelated. First off, we'll get through the first week of recaps real fast. We didn't get a chance to do much of the preview-wise last time, but we'll see what happened throughout the rest of the league. Our first game is the Rag and Bone are victorious 2-1 over the Taisho Karan. Sean and Chris squared off Slan, which is not really a team that gets played a whole lot in the league, versus Shambling, which is a kind of a mainstay of the league. Almost always somebody's playing Shambling, right? So, both teams killed a player, but I think actually Sean got the worst end of that trade, seeing as how it was a ghoul that was leveled up.
He called it, too. He called his shots.
He did, yeah. You gotta appreciate that. If you're going to post about a model dying, at least he had the follow-through, right?
Right. You don't want to be a liar on Discord.
That's true. You're going to get roasted. So, it looked like a fairly standard 2-1 grind there. Slan... I do think Slan are a team that excel at higher SPP totals. Like, once you start getting skills on everybody, the team has an attack vector that other teams don't have.
Sure. It's like Chaos or Nurgle or something like that. At lower TV, they really struggle because they don't have the basic skills that are good. But once you get those basic skills, they have a lot of skills on top of that start to give them an edge.
Exactly. They scale up pretty far from there. And so I think Sean being set back a ghoul kind of sucks for him. But easy come, easy go. This was a ghoul that basically had free skills because of the new rules.
Yeah, you gotta love losing that Blodge ghoul first game.
Yeah, right. So the Dead Gooners versus the Tryhards was a 1-1 tie. I think this game you probably enjoyed looking at the record for this game. There were quite a few fouls that went around.
Clearly, a lot of good fouls. And, I'm always excited to see a stabbing team. You know how much I respect the stab game.
Yeah. And so it looks like Phoebe, she hasn't played in the league since the Gnome season. That was her first foray into Blood Bowl. And if I were to recommend the team for first-time players, it wouldn't necessarily be Gnomes.
That's a rough first foray.
Yeah. Gnomes are a kind of a finesse team, I would say. I like the team, like on paper, but if you don't know what you're doing, the team just doesn't function like other teams.
It's real easy to snowball into just a catastrophe.
Yeah, right. Ness has brought back the Tryhards, so he's got a bunch of random skills on Dark Elves. He's got one really good blitzer, but this game ended up a draw. I think that you might expect that from like a Necro Dark Elf. Both teams are kind of like bend, don't break defenses. Sure. And so both teams could easily stall the other ones all the way through the half, right? So I think that's kind of an expected outcome somewhat, depending on how casualties fell throughout the rest of the game. It looks like they were wailing on each other pretty hard there.
Yeah, and some of the injuries will bleed over into the next week. I mean, I think Nez is sitting on a sevens team at this point.
Yeah, okay. I can empathize.
Sorry, eight players. Yeah, right. He's bringing over, so yeah.
I can empathize with that. So yeah, we'll have to see what where it goes from there. I mean, a draw is not a bad way to start the season necessarily. Get some SPP through like a touchdown and some casualties and whatnot. can't feel too bad about that. We had our shootout for the week as our next game, the Metropolitan Dumpster Rats versus the Gondolin Glory Hounds. That's a 5-3 victory for the High Elf team there.
So I watched some of this one. I believe the first 3 kickoff results were quick snap,
which is really funny.
And 2 of them ended in a 1-turn touchdown from Barbie.
Which is really funny, because that's how Jim's last season ended, was quick snap, gutter runner, touchdowns. Yes, so he gets to start the season the exact mirror.
He actually mentioned that. He said, I ended my last season on a quick snap 1-turn touchdown, and I started my next season on a quick snap 1-turn touchdown. When he rolled the 9, he said, what is that? And I said, it's a quick snap. How do you not know that?
It should be,
considering how your season ended.
Yeah. Yeah. Our Barbie said she had a lot of fun in that game, and I think any game where both players are just kind of walking past the other one to score is probably going to be kind of a fun one. There's not really, like, against Skaven, you want to try to, like, get the damage where you can against them on the defense and try to just force them to score and then, like, hold the ball. But, like, High Elves have, like, a really strong passing game, and he had, like, a decent blitzer, but it's not like you have enough strength to really pressure the team. And so it just kind of turned into a shootout. And I think Barbie is the team that blinked first.
So there weren't a lot of casualties this game. And I could be remembering incorrectly. I do drink a lot, Nathan. But I believe there were plenty of knockouts in that game, and near the end of it, it was just a numbers game.
Yeah,
right? 9 armor is better than 8 armor.
Yep, yeah.
Right? If you're just going to keep punching each other, 8 armor is probably going to lose.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is a candidate for the most touchdowns to be scored in a game all season. Right, like 8 touchdowns is like nearly unprecedented.
That's a lot of touchdowns.
If we went back and looked at last season, there might be like a 5-2 or maybe a 5-1 or something like that.
Juan and I were 4-4 if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
That's right. Yeah. I do remember that game. But yeah, once again, Elves and Skaven, right? So kind of trading touchdowns back and forth. But yeah, I mean, we would be hard pressed to see a game that puts up as much points as this. I think.
I think you're onto something there.
All right, the next game, the Tidal Terrors lost 0-2 against Those Who Wander. And the last one, we did a brief recap of it, but Will managed to pull through a win despite being vastly outnumbered in this game. Apparently he was down like 4 players starting in the first half and then was just down the whole game. But I think it's kind of a testament to Chaos. I think a lot of the Chaos, especially Chosen, right? The Chaos Chosen. When you have 4 strength, 3 agility players, you can make stuff happen in a game with just a handful of them.
Sure, and his Chaos Chosen have really good value.
They got a lot of skills.
I'm not a random person myself, right? I'll do it if there's nothing to lose, right? If the player already has what I want it to have, I might random something, or if it's a lineman, somebody cheap.
Yeah.
But he kind of embraced the Zinch and just went crazy with the randoms, and so he has some really good players that are really cheap in this list.
There were several players who were coming into the league who looked at his team and were like very intimidated by it, right?
Like, how does he have all these skills?
Yeah, exactly. And it's randoms. Random mutations overall are pretty good, right? I think random general is still the best of the ones, like if you're just going to take a random skill. But random mutations are pretty good. And especially on like just the Beastman chassis, right? The horns, human lineman stat, just suddenly 2 heads and you've got somebody who's good at dodging.
So it's missing next game. But Will has a Beastman runner that is horns, 2 heads, prehensile tail, tackle.
Yeah.
All 3 of those past horns were random. So he's only 30K more expensive, And that is a ridiculous player against stunty or an agility team.
Yeah, it's like almost Withergrass Double Drool, but like cost 90k instead. And
I'd be willing to say that's better.
I think it is better.
Right.
It doesn't have like all the random other stuff, but like Withergrass
that isn't important.
Withergrass Double Drool is like agility 4, right? Like he's a terrible player, but you know all those randoms do make that like a really like potent for its cost player.
This guy gets I don't know, wrestle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. That is a ball sacker extraordinaire.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, and I think if you're going to be down on players, having stacked to the gills Chaos Chosen and some Beastmen is a good way to win a game, just because you're going to have piles of skills at your disposal, and that you can get some stuff tilted your way. So
now on the other side, you got Clay's Lizardmen, right? And they look more like what I would do with a team. Right. We got block source blockers, 2 Mighty Blow. His random on a source blocker is Tackle, and his random on a Skink Runner is Sneaky Git. I'm not sure you random better than that on those two.
Yeah.
And then a Croxagore with Garden Block, right? That's
right. That's a very solid list. Very solid. And I think that's why he was up on people, right? You got lots of instances of
I'm
Mighty
sure.
Blow.
Cut 3 Mighty Blow block, you're probably peeling some stuff.
Yeah, and you don't, like, the thing about, like, the Chaos teams is if your choice is stand in there and take a Mighty Blow hit or dodge away on 3 agility, a lot of times you're just going to dodge away on 3 agility. But if we've got a Croxagore in the mix, dodging away on 4 agility is a lot nastier, right? And if you're down on the ground, then guess what? The Sneaky Git Skink's coming in.
This was 2 nasty teams that I'm glad are not in our division.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next game now, and this is what I consider to be probably the largest upset of this past week.
Are we sure about that?
I don't think that game was an upset. I think most people would have picked you to win our game.
No. I mean,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. No. Sorry. Yeah, we'll set up the punchline later. So this is the low key Rat Bastards have a 2-1 victory over the Little Titans of Mayhem. This is Austin taking down last league's champion in game 1, and I think Austin was actually behind the 8 ball for a lot of this because he was missing a lot of his team's juice. Right, Radiger went down.
I didn't watch the game, right? I didn't even keep up with it on Tour Play, but I gotta assume if you're playing 1, you're spending most of the game behind the 8 ball.
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah. Like he isn't known for. Well, okay, he does do a comeback every now and then, but most of the time he just starts at the top and stays there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But yeah, so let's see. I'm looking at it, and yeah, the early loss of a mutant Rat Ogre.
Yeah.
Right, turn 5. That kind of hurts.
Your block Rat Ogre's down, right? Your Rat Ogre's like your key to victory in that game, right? The Rat Ogre is what threatens Varag. The Rat Ogre is what threatens the Trolls, right? Like you want to be the big guy alpha striking the other big guys, but then you also need to get out of harm's way, right? Like you don't want to like blitz Varag with the Rat Ogre and then have the Rat Ogre standing right next to Varag so that he can do a jump up block back, right?
Yeah, it's when you play the Rat Ogre, you got 2 modes, and that's basing little weak guys that want to dodge away, or blitzing big guys and moving away from them.
Using the rest of your movement to go the other way.
Because Rat Ogres do not have the armor to stand up to hits from other big guys.
Yeah, they don't have. There was I want to say didn't they have Thick Skull in some older version of the game? I think they did, but they don't have it now.
Right. I've blocked out all older versions of the game due to Nathan caused trauma. I mean, also we're looking at this one hurts me personally. The Sneaky Git Goblin Lineman was sent off on its very first foul on turn 1.
Yeah.
Right, like that. I mean, I'm packing it up after that.
Yeah.
Right, like
yeah, I know what you mean.
He stuck it out. Austin stuck it out after that, and you get my respect.
Yeah.
But woof, lose that breaks your heart.
Yeah.
Right? You're already out of it at that point, at least mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. at one point I looked at this game because it was one of those that was happening in the store while I was working, so I'd like stop by every so often. At one point I stopped by. The game was 1-1, second half. Juan's got the ball at like midfield, and it looks like he's got open space in front of him to just keep the ball going. And I was like,
as one expects when watching a Juan game.
And then somewhere in there, the Snotling coughed up the ball. I think the gutter runner got it. Something happened. I'm not entirely sure what occurred, but the Snotlings coughed up the ball, heads in the other direction. Austin gets his second touchdown, locks in a win over the last season's winner, and that's got to feel pretty good if you're Austin.
It probably doesn't feel bad. Hell, it feels good. Excuse me. It feels good for me.
To watch, and
I'm not lose. Even Austin.
Yeah.
Anytime I watch Juan lose, it get a little warm and fuzzy.
All right, so we got the Barbarians have a 2-0 victory over the Realm Gate Marauders. And so, I mean, was this a casualty-less game? Is that what I saw?
I'm looking at it now. I am not seeing any casualties whatsoever. Like, I can, on one screen on my phone, I can see the entirety of the game.
Yeah.
From fan factor to end of match.
Yeah, which tells you not a lot happened as far as, like, the results of throwing blocks in the game, right?
It was a foul and a send-off and a touchdown, a completion, a send-off, a foul, a send-off, and a touchdown.
Yeah, yep. So Fred got hit with the infamous officious ref. It ejected his ogre from the game.
Everyone's favorite kickoff result.
Yep, exactly. And I felt bad. I told Fred that sucks. That's just like negative reinforcement for him. Like Fred's actively trying to get better at the game. He's swapping humans to try out a different team, stuff like that. And then you just get like your ogre ejected from the game in a straight up bash matchup. Like that's just.
Sure. Sometimes what is play skill is attributed to luck, and that messes with you. But sometimes it's just bad luck.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing you can do about. There's nothing you can do about rolling an 11 followed by losing the roll followed by a 1.
Yep.
Right. Like there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. There's no outplaying that. Right.
Yeah. There's no amount of skill that gets you to that ogre staying on the field.
Yeah. Exactly. So definitely empathize with you there. Chatted with Fred like a little bit this morning. He was talking about like the getting used to a team that can kind of hang in there and fight if it needed to, which humans certainly can do. He's taken guard on a couple of blitzers. You got the ogre, stuff like that, right?
At least a little better.
Right? A little better.
You don't want to fall into the trap of thinking humans are a bash team.
Right.
They are not.
Yeah. There are teams that they can outbash.
Sure.
And then there are the teams that they are more mobile than, right? And virtually everything's going to fall into one category or the other, right?
The important thing is to know which is which and play accordingly.
Exactly, yeah. So definitely probably a little bit of an acclamation for Fred moving from Rats. I'd here probably wanted some casualties on Blackworks if I had to guess, just so that you can get that slow lumbering level up process for them going.
I would imagine, especially since this was he brought this team over from a previous season, and he did not bring over a single experienced Black Orc, right? Like, he's got a good troll, he's got a good goblin.
It's really good. It's a really good. It's the most expensive stunty player in the league.
A solid killer goblin with block, dauntless, and mighty blow.
Yep. Yeah. So I really respect anybody who sticks to a bit, and is going with a bit right here, right? Like this is a really funny goblin.
I feel like he kind of has to be. This goblin's 165K.
Yeah, exactly.
He cost 4 other goblins.
Yes. Yeah.
Plus 5K.
Yep. Yeah.
Woo.
All right. Next up, we've got the Swamp People and bad choices all around. This was the old-fashioned gator fight here. Halen won 2-0. I do want to give a quick shout-out to Joe Scotta's paint job. I don't know if you got to see that team or not.
I've not seen the team. I've not met the person.
All right, yeah. So he plays a bit in the other Upstate Blood Bowl league. He came down this past weekend to play against Halen. I do want to shout out his team. His team looks good. He wanted kind of like a swamp murky feel, and a lot of times it's real easy to lose detail when you do like that sepia muddy kind of like thing like that. But
dark just looks dark.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes.
And but that his team looks pretty good. I hope you get a chance to see it at some point because it looks cool. So.
I hope so too, because we need more painted teams. The gray stuff kills me.
Yeah. So now I'm giving Skoda the appraisal sandwich. I'm appraising his paint job. I'm sandwiching the bad in that he lost the game. He apparently lost on the classic tripwire. He was trying to tie it up, and he snake eyes the go for it into the end zone, coughed up the ball, and Halen ends up going the other direction with it.
On tour play, this is a very uneventful game. Right?
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
Yes.
Right. Weather inducements. A player was sent off. A player got a touchdown. End of match.
Yeah.
MVPs, winnings, dedicated fans, match reported, touchdown.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So Halen bungled his touchdown. He put it on a Saurus that was supposed to be on a skink. Like if you're a Lizard Man team, you're gonna choose to put touchdown on Sauruses if you can.
I would rather have it on a.
But that's
Saurus.
not what happened. He fat fingered the player, and so that's where that got corrected. But yeah, the skink ran the other direction with it, and so. I mean, I think getting out of that game with no damage to your team is fine. You don't get a lot of SPP though, and so it's
when you play against any stunties. Skinks are stunties,
yeah.
Right? You kind of expect
something
to get some SPP off that, and to not do it for either team kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. We're relatively low SPP game. I think. Halen was saying that Joe was protecting his skinks really well, and so but I think what that ends up doing then is you have like a very slow conservative approach towards the end zone, and so he ended up in a spot where he was having to make dice rolls to score, and one of those dice rolls failed. It happened to be the last one, right? But if you're making a bunch of dice rolls and you fail earlier, you don't feel as bad. It feels really bad on the last one. But you still have to make a lot of rolls to score. Right?
If you're making your opponent roll 10 dice, it doesn't matter if it's the first dice or the 10th dice that fails.
Yeah.
It's still a failure. Now, if it happens to be that 10th dice and you had only made him roll 9 dice, right?
Yeah.
They succeed, and, so yeah, you don't want to be in a position where you're having to roll dice to do the basic stuff of the team.
Yeah.
Right? You do want to put your opponents in that position, and it kind of sounds like one of these players did that, and the other one didn't.
Yeah. So now Joe joined the league. He paid it kind of a compliment because I talked to him before the league started. He was like, I hear this league is tough, right? And so like I want to play in this league because I hear this league is tough, and I want to get better at the game.
Brutal is probably a more accurate description.
Yeah. I would go with brutal.
Right. Some of our players are very good.
Yeah.
The vast majority of us, and I put myself in this, are just not that bad.
Right.
But we're all pretty brutal.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Our next game here is the Clobberin Catastrophe in a 1-1 draw against What a Drag. Now, normally Yanni would recap his own game. However, Yanni is attending to various legal matters this week, which is why he is out. But he should be back next week. And he gave me like a little bit of a recap of what happened in this game. I don't know if you ended up getting to see this one or not.
I did watch this game.
Okay.
It was entertaining to watch. There was a good bit of fouling going on. Yanni pretty much got caught whenever he did it.
Yeah.
To be fair, David also got caught, but he bribed and argued his way out of them, so it didn't matter as much. I believe near the end of the game, Yanny was running real low on Amazons.
Yeah.
And early game, you kind of expect that, right? But it was an entertaining game. I think he's got to be happy with a 1-1 after maybe how it was going at the end.
Yeah.
You got to be pretty happy with a 1-1 there. David, I'm not sure if he's as happy because he was doing a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a good game. It was fun to watch. It was entertaining. It was happening at the same time as like 3 other games.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of went back and forth, but.
You've stated many times that watching Blood Bowl is far better than playing Blood Bowl.
Oh, I hate to play Blood Bowl. This is the worst game to play. I only play so I can watch other people suffer through playing Blood Bowl.
Yeah.
Which made this a good game for me.
Our next game, we've got the Wolf Pack in a 0-2 loss to the Rookwood Conspiracy. This game happened this past Saturday. I only got to glimpse at it just a little bit, but when I looked at it, it was like kind of even. It's another one of those games where tour play's not telling you the full story, right? There's like a handful of some casualties and whatnot, but maybe a foul thrown here or there. But it looks like the humans came out ahead of this one. I think they had some like few like important KOs. Most of the time when you're taking a dwarf off the pitch is not really going to be a KO, but sometimes that happens.
But still, just dwarves are one of those teams that's so slow. As soon as you break armor, a lot of times that dwarf is just out of the drive.
Yeah.
Right? He's so far away from where that. Yeah. If the action is moving, he's so far away. By the time he stands up, because he's standing up and moving 1-2 spaces.
Yeah.
Right, unless you're on Yanny's team, and then he's just sprinting all over the place. But I always enjoy watching Josh games. I've never enjoyed watching Warren games as much. He normally plays goblins, and he's
playing goofy.
He's not really trying. He's trying to do his thing.
Yeah.
Right, and his thing is not making his opponent suffer or win the game, so I don't enjoy it as much. Josh, I know he took a long break there because he had one of those seasons, and I've had these seasons too, where I've had to take a break, where it's just every game.
It's brutal.
It's just so statistically unlikely.
Yeah.
Right? And he had one of those seasons, and it about got him, but he's back now, and it seems like
starting the season off with a win, you got to feel pretty good.
You got to feel good about that.
It's a palate cleanser.
Yeah, and the parts I watched of it, he seemed to be enjoying it. He seemed to be doing well. Always good to see. I hope at the end of the season, Josh doesn't have to take another 3-year hiatus.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, I think our league is big enough where if players want to take a season off because something like you just have a bad season. I want to say my Amazon season was kind of like that, where it was like dropped pass to win a game, go to throw a block on somebody, roll like both down, but I need the guy out of the way to score a touchdown, re-roll into double skulls. That translates into somebody getting killed on the next turn, and then like a crowd surf. It's one of those where like stuff. You get hit with like the worst possible outcome of something, and if you did that like 11 games in a row, it would take a mental toll on you.
You get the game where one bad thing snowballs into a dozen bad things, right? Which makes your next game harder.
Yeah.
And then the next game, the bad thing happens, and snowballs into more bad things. And by the end of the season, you're just
like, how was I supposed to get anything done?
There's legitimately a season there where I think we had our matches come out on Sunday, and maybe it was back when Krosky was still in the league, and so every Sunday he's getting on the Discord being like, "Hey, where are the pairings at?" And I'm like, Krosky,
you don't want the pairings.
Just shut up.
You don't want them. Nobody.
Let's just take a week off.
Let's all right. Our next game, the Necromantic State Hellhounds, in a 3-1 victory over the Legion of Honesty, Honor, and Friendship. I got a post-game recap from Jennings here, and it looks like Bryson got the full Blood Bowl experience in this game.
Gotta love the full Blood Bowl experience.
Full Blood Bowl experience. He had a huge first half. He kills a zombie turn 1. Bomber kills a wraith. This doesn't show up in tour play, right? Because the bomber kills a wraith that regenerated, and he manages to throw teammate for a touchdown as well. And so you're just getting to do everything with the team, right?
Sure.
But the full Blood Bowl experience includes heartbreak.
Sure.
And so it all falls apart in the second half for him. John's, murdering players. He's no longer in his back foot. I think, Bomber got kicked out of the game. No, he actually successfully argued to keep Bomber in the game.
Beautiful.
And then on the second argue attempt, his coach gets kicked out of the game, and Bomber's gone. So it's one of those where you got all the ups in the first half, and then all of the downward momentum in the second half. And that, my friends, is the full Blood Bowl experience.
I've heard enough will giveth and enough will taketh away. I've only experienced one of those personally, but I'm glad the new player got to get both.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess there was some game that happened between a Snarling team and a Corn team. We probably just skipped that real fast.
That couldn't have been interesting.
It couldn't have been interesting. We'll hit the Soul Peak Dooms. Have a 2-1 victory over the Arbor Vitae. This is where the punchline lands.
I think this is our upset. Now, I don't know Jack 5670571. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. But anyone who beats Wayne in the first game of the season has my respect until they start talking about how good Stab is.
Yeah.
So, Jack, if you're listening to this, fantastic job.
I actually, having played Wood Elves myself for a season, there are actually quite a few things that I don't like about that team early in a season, right? I think the glue that holds the Wood Elf team together are the linemen. And when you start a fresh Wood Elf team, your linemen are the guys who kind of go ignored because you're trying to get skills on the players that kind of carry the team. In this case, Wayne started with a tree man, started with a war dancer, started with a thrower, right? Mm-hmm. So right there, that's going to be 4 of your skills since you have to spend 2 of them for block on the tree man. And that leaves a little bit of skills for the linemen.
Sure.
And so war dancers, they can win a game by themselves. But early in a season, they have a tendency to get themselves into trouble. And experienced players can take advantage of that, right? If a war dancer hits the ground, the experienced player knows, let's just put a boot into the war dancer, right? Let's make sure it's not just getting up and wandering around wherever it wants to. And I actually think there's a ton of guard on this Shambling Undead team, and that makes the war dancer cage dive a lot tougher, right? If the ball is on a block dodge ghoul, and you've got a lot of guard, and you're making cages, and the war dancer needs a 4-up to jump in there and then try to dislodge the ball. If you've got guard to the right spots on the cage, then it's going to be 2 die uphill. You can't get it down to a 1 die with some clever use of cutting off tackle zones.
Jack has a lot of guard, and I think that's one of the quirks of our league is we don't value guard as highly as we really should.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
We I think we overvalue, and this may be partly my fault. Dirty players and stuff like that. We love those skills.
Yeah.
Right, but we don't take guard as much as we should, really. And it is, especially if you get into any kind of bash contest, the guy with more strength is usually going to win that contest.
Yes.
And guard is more strength.
Exactly.
On the Wayne side of things, do you take a tree when you play Wood Elves?
So, it's the question you have to ask yourself here is you get a free skill, right, because of our setup. And so you can painlessly get block on the tree and start the season with it. right?
Now, you say painlessly, but that's 2 other elves that aren't getting skills.
That's true. It is a trade-off. The thing is, I think the tree costs 120, right? And so the tree can be another elf lineman plus an extra reroll. And when I was looking at starting Wood Elf rosters, the one that I started with that I didn't like was double War Dancer, 9 linemen, 2 rerolls. And what I came to the conclusion was that if I were to start all over again, I would do War Dancer, Thrower, 9 linemen, 3 rerolls starting. The reason being that the rerolls were where I lost games. I would go to dodge and I would roll a 1.
That first dodge being a 1 is where you lose games.
Yeah, and right. So I felt like the third reroll was really important, especially like if you're trying to have the War Dancer do heroics to win a game. You've got 1 baked-in dodge reroll, but you're going to need rerolls for a 1 die hit or rerolls for any failed dodge. Like 3-up dodges, if you play enough stunty teams, you play enough Amazons, you get used to making 3-up dodges with rerolls. And you play Wood Elves, you play any elf team, and you're used to like the 2-up to get away, and you think to yourself, well, that 3-up with the reroll into 1 tackle zone, that's basically impossible. So if you've got like a bank of rerolls, this happens with vampires a lot too, where you hypnotic gaze strategically, you get down to like a 1 3-up dodge with a reroll to try to get a hit on the ball carrier. You take those chances, you engineer that situation, you go for it, because if it works, it wins the game, right? You steal the ball from them. Wayne said he popped the ball loose several times in the game, but it would like bounce to another undead player who'd spike like a 5 or a 6 to catch it, or it'd bounce into 2 undead tackle zones. There's no way to retrieve the ball there. I like having the extra rerolls on the starting roster for Wood Elves, because they get more expensive as the league goes on. In my opinion, the tree's true value on the Wood Elf roster is taking all those line hits, because it's an armor 11, strength 6 piece that if your opponent devotes any number of guys to, then they have overcommitted to it.
Sure.
If they just ignore it, that's probably the best route to dealing with it. Just go bully the elves. The tree pays for itself because that's 1 less line hit you have to take every time you line up. And so that's how many ever percentage of elves that you don't have to replace during the course of the league, because the tree is taking those hits. And I like an asymmetric setup with Wood Elves. I like putting the tree 2 spaces away from the hash and then putting the 2 elves on the other side of it, kind of like nestled towards the end zone, especially since you've got kick, and Wayne started with kick. So I like setting up asymmetrically, setting them off to one side. And so if they bring people over there to throw those blocks, then that creates some sort of asymmetric setup somewhere else on the field, and then you can kind of pick and choose where to kick based off of where they set up. And if you ever roll blitz, you look like a genius, right? Because there's nobody underneath the ball, and then you got like 5 Wood Elves underneath it. And so that's the way I like to play the Wood Elves. And it took me like all season to get to the point where my Wood Elf team was firing on all cylinders. And I had some really rough games. And that was a fresh start season, so I didn't even have the free skills. I just had War Dancers, and those idiots snaked every dodge they made.
Elves is a deceptively rough team with no skills, right? Because you can't just stand there and take hits, right? You got to be able to dodge away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and it can get bad quick. I think Mike showed us that with Wood Elves last season. You can get to the point where you've got
you're playing from
borrowing players every single game.
Yeah, you're living. You're taking your paycheck. You're heading down to the cash advance center to rinse,
pay off last week's cash advance and get another cash advance.
Yes, yeah, and that's what you're doing, but like with Wood Elf journeyman,
Sure.
And so yeah, it's real hard to get ahead when the goblin bookkeepers are sitting over there trying to keep you go. So.
And I can give you 3 wood elves on payday if you just loan me 2 wood elves for this game.
Yeah, exactly. So, so there you go. That's the non podcast host recaps. We can get into the recap of our game now, I suppose.
Sure. Did we want to take a break first, or do we want to go straight to the recap?
We'll take a quick little break right here, and we will be right back after your. What was our sponsor for this week? The Lonely Man's
Manscaping.
The Lonely Man's Waifu Body Pillows. Coming right up. So
love them. Can recommend.
He got some SPP that game.
All right. Little trip down memory lane.
all right, we are back, and we're gonna get into what the people really want: me complaining about the game for 45 minutes.
It was a glorious game.
But I mean, the thing is week 1. There's like basically no options. I don't have anything in my arsenal. I just have to put my team on the table and play against you, right? That's what it boils down to. You have all of the power in there. You get to pick your inducements how you want them. Snotlings have like a pretty big roster of inducements they can take, and so you just kind of go from there, right?
All skill on my part.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't have too much to complain about in the game. The only thing that I think that really like tilted me about the game was the bomb throw. But that was like in the second half. It was really funny in retrospect, but
really only threw the one bomb.
Yeah,
but it knocked down a blood spawn and casualty to bloodseeker.
Yeah,
so I can't be too mad about it.
It was a pretty good bomb, I'd say.
It's a good investment of 30 points there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean we sit down. I suspected you were probably going to do Giant Morg. I think some other people thought maybe Morg Black Gobbo. I guess you didn't want the Black Gobbo because you probably felt he was too frail.
I went the Giant because I just painted it and it looks awesome.
It does look good. It does look good. I will say that every time we've ever played, it's been with like 2 painted teams. In the tour play era, we've both been playing with painted teams. So our matches always look good regardless of the outcome of them. So
well, and I'm sitting at the table. It doesn't hurt.
So yeah, I mean, I think another thing that happened in this game is you got the option right. You had the choice of whether to kick or receive.
And of course, I received because I wanted to do some damage on the first turn, and I did, which was nice.
Yeah. You also did roll triple skulls with the Giant first off, and so I was actually hoping there was going to be not necessarily like triple skulls every time, like you 3 dice me or something like that, but I was hoping there would be like a little bit more on the my guys don't necessarily do what I was trying to get them to do front than actually happened during the course of the game.
The Giant failed me twice that game. The triple skull on turn 1, and then not blitzing your ball carrier right before you scored.
Yeah.
And that was it. The rest of the time, Giant was on point.
Yep, and splattering people. The Giant's a surprisingly mobile piece, right? I think part of it has to do with his footprint. So even if he's not necessarily like tearing ass around the board, he's got such like a big footprint on the board.
It's a double-edged sword, right? Like if one of your models is in the way, right? Like I can't really squeeze through.
Yeah.
But if the model is down on the ground, or there are no models because between him, Morg, and 2 trolls, we're removing a lot of players, then that really fades away.
Yeah.
That footprint stays the same. He can base a lot of your players, and without guard, there's not a lot they can do about it.
Exactly.
Except dodge away.
Yeah. And I would say the traditional method of like leaving, putting 2 spaces and then another dude, that doesn't work against the Giant because the Giant can base them both. Normally, if you're playing against a bash team, that keeps it so that they have to like send 2 different people after those. But in this case, the Giant can just kind of walk up to them both, keep them in the corners of his tackle zones, and then he's threatening like a multi-block on the next turn, and so
and putting them on the line, right? Like it's real hard to put yourself in a position where the Giants not getting 2 3-die blocks on the line.
Yeah.
As soon as you kick off, it helped you that I rolled triple skulls on that first one. But normally, between him and Moore, we're looking at 3 mighty blow plus 2 hits on a turn, and most of your team was armor 8.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So that really hurts.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a byproduct of the redraft, right? Like if I was playing a fresh corn team, I could fit like the 4 Bloodseekers on there with block. Then I got some 10 armor guys with block. It's not as easy to 3 dice them, stuff like that. And that's one of those where it's like, in this specific matchup, I wish I was playing like a fresh corn team because I would have like a little bit more on the durability side. But I'm not playing for week 1. I'm playing for the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And I think with that in mind, my objective of get as many SPP out of this game as you can, I did a pretty good job, I think.
You got a solid amount of SPP. You got 18 SPP out of the game.
And then we were talking about some of the other victories from earlier where people did not get that much SPP.
Most games, the players did not get 18 SPP. And a lot of that was on your blood spawn.
Yeah.
Because I fed him a snotling a turn.
Yeah.
He ate good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there's a world, like, if I peel the troll as soon as I touch it, right? Like, I think if the dice roll had been at some level of parity to start the game, it would have been a different second half. But because I did manage to KO the giant with the blood spawn. But the giant came back. So
came right back.
Yeah, came right back, just right back in the game. And so, if you're down a troll and down a giant for the second half, even if I'm sitting at 6 players, it's a very different game.
But the second half, I have a 2-to-1 player advantage, and 4 of those players are trolls, giant, morgue.
Yeah. And honestly, I think the game was over. I think the game was over on your first turn of the second half because that's where you threw the bomb that knocked down the blood spawn and casualty the Bloodseeker. You had your blitz, which resulted in a casualty, and I gave you 1 block with the Snotling, which also resulted in a KO. So despite giving you 1 block for the turn, it turned into 3 removals for the turn, which at that point is half of my team. And so I will say I am very proud of the block dodge Beastman. He did quite a bit of work by himself because he was the only model on the field at one point. So
I tried to hunt him down, but he's got some movement. I can't really box him in that well.
Yeah.
I did box him against the sideline with the giant one time,
and he just dodged right out of there.
He just casually
strolled right out of there.
Right.
Yeah. I'm that was like a use case for 2 heads on him. I'm gone back and forth over what his next skill should be, whether it should be extra arms or 2 heads. I'm leaning 2 heads because I think that +1 to dodge on him makes him way more mobile.
I'm a big fan of 2 heads. I never got to the point where I took it on a Skaven team, but it was always in the plan.
Yeah,
right?
Somewhere in there. It's on the list.
Yes. But I have played with Hack Flim before, and 2 heads is real solid.
It's insane on him too because he's already agility 2. So he's getting to dodge into 1 tackle zone on 2 pluses, and that's bonkers. So if the giant had blitzed my dude there, you would have 3-diced him. If he was still standing, the goal was to blitz 3-die uphill into the giant because he had Juggernaut. And so I could move the giant and then dodge free if he's still standing there. I had re-rolls, so I just need not skull on 3 dice. And at that point, that's like my best option to try to score. And that's what I was going to go for.
That was the giant boneheading that turn was probably a best case scenario for you because it did allow you to score and then concede without penalty because all you had left really were your good. Like, it was like that guy and a couple more corn goers, and you do not want to lose corn goers.
No, I don't really want 70k pieces. Like, I had a Marauder die in the game, but that's like whatever. Like the That's actually the first. That's the first Marauder. So all of last season, I played Khorne, and I don't know that a Marauder even took a serious injury during that whole time. So this Marauder dying was like the first Marauder who's taken any kind of like permanent debilitating injury on the team. And like the whole reason I started last season with as many Marauders as I did was because I was planning for them to turn while I was building up the Bloodseekers and the Khorne Gores,
Sure.
right?
You expect 9 of your players to level up and do well, and then everything else is fodder.
Yeah, but last season it turned out that the Marauders were like some of the best players on my team, and so it does suck losing a Marauder, but it's not the same as if I had lost like a Bloodseeker. I had started the team with an Apothecary, so I had an Apothecary in the hole. If this was like a playoff game, I would of course have played it out because if I lose the game, I'm packing it up and going home anyway. But
you never know. You can win a playoff game with 2 players.
You can, yeah. There's some precedent for that, and so yeah, it was one of those where I was like, I got SPP. Let's get out of here. Yeah, my next game's gonna look really funny because I'm walking into it with 6 journeymen, but the thing is like all of my skilled players are in the next game.
Yeah, I think you can't be too unhappy with how that turned out, right? You got SPP, nothing big died.
Right.
And when you're playing against particularly my Snotling team, which is built
to murder people,
to just ruin someone's day.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I win games. So in a way, you won that game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. That was one of those where I can't, even if I wanted to, I can't let the tilt take over because that means you would have won the game, regardless of the results of the game. So yeah,
that right there is why Nez is my hero. Right? You didn't call me any names. You didn't throw any of my models at me.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's definitely an interesting game. I'm glad that there's not like 5 stunty teams this season. I could just imagine having to play all of them back to back to back at the beginning of the league, and
I know you don't have a whole ton of respect.
I do not.
No talent stunty coaches.
So yeah, I mean, it was an eventful game. If you go look at the tour play marker for that game, it is it is just
packed.
It is just something every turn happened in it. So yeah.
All right, so we're going into what next or this week's games?
Real fast, we've got to say goodbye to the players who have died.
The in memoriam.
The in memoriam section.
Okay.
We've got Foghish, Dust Crusher, a Dark Elf lineman for the Tryhards. Phoebe was still learning how tour play worked, so this Dark Elf was actually spared the indignity of becoming a zombie. This Dark Elf player died. We had Waste, the appropriately named zombie lineman for the Necromantic State Hellhounds. He died in a Black Orc maiming related injury. You had, of course, one Nurgling die during our game. And
sad.
Yeah, I know. Where will you find
there goes my season.
Where will you find a replacement? My Marauder, who the random name generator named Hum Sevum. He was crushed to death, I think, by Morg. It may have been the Giant, but it was some Mighty Blue +2.
It was Morg.
Yeah.
Appropriately named.
Yeah.
Morgue Morg.
Yeah. Finally, we got Jez, the Sland lineman for Taisho Karan. He was turned into a zombie by the Rag and Bone Sean's team.
The indignity.
Yep. And Merle Reno for the Ghoul with Block for Rag and Bone died. Like I said earlier, not necessarily a great trade for Sean, losing a Block Dodge Ghoul for just a zombie. Not really how you want to start the season.
But hilarious for me.
But hilarious for the neutral observer. Okay, so that brings us to the Scoundrels Guide to Dastardly Play. Well, I'll let you take it from here. Let's talk playing dirty in Blood Bowl from the master.
Playing dirty in Blood Bowl. Well, I did not prepare for this at all, Nathan. But luckily, I live my life by these principles. So, I mean, step one.
Step on them.
Well, no, step one is in Discord.
Okay.
You gotta talk that trash.
All
Nathan.
right. Yeah, that's true. I say many times. I tell everyone that you're fighting on two battlefields, right? Like you're fighting on the Blood Bowl pitch, and you're fighting in the arena of the mind.
Sure, you can't really start a game without a Ric Flair meme. But once you get them in the game, you're looking at Mighty Blow and Dirty Player.
Yeah, they're the things that add to the injuries.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into math or statistics or
Nerd stuff.
Yeah, nerd stuff. But that Mighty Blow +1 adds a lot of probability to breaking armor and doing an injury, right? Like a 10+ on 2d6. A 9+ is twice as likely as a 10+.
Yeah.
And
that's us talking about the difference between 10 and 9, right? And then 9 and 8 is a huge difference, and 8 and 7 is a huge difference.
So Mighty Blow +2 is sometimes it's like quadrupling your odds to break armor. Yeah. And once you get them on the ground and they're there for a turn, it's real easy to surround them.
Yeah.
And give them the boots.
Yeah.
Right? The dirty play is where you come in the second half. You knock them down, and you kick them. Okay? you get +3, 4, 5 to that armor break.
It doesn't matter what their armor is.
Unless it's Chaos Dwarves, you're probably breaking that armor nearly 100% of the time. And then you get the +1 to injury. You can really start peeling some stuff off the pitch. Yeah. And it's so much easier to play against 10 players than 11. Yeah. And it gets even easier to play against 9 players than 10. Right? Once you get to that second half and your opponent's down to 6 players, and you've got a bunch of goofy little guys running around, so you got a 2-to-1 player advantage, right? It's real hard to lose from that position, unless of course quick snap and they get a one-turn touchdown. But besides that, right? It's I'm a proponent of the dirty play. Yeah, I don't see you dirty playing a lot, Nathan.
So now I play a lot of teams that have expensive players on them, right? And that's the math that kind of goes in behind it too, right? When you're playing Snotlings and you're fouling with a 15k Snotling, or in your case, if you've invested in a couple Snotlings, even then the Snotling, even with dirty player and stuff like that, still 60k. Still a very reasonable price to pay.
It's cheaper than some teams, just basic linemen.
Yeah, right. Especially in the case of elf stuff like that. I don't do a ton of dirty play because most of the time the players that I would foul with have an amount of value attached to them. Now, I mean, I mentioned it while we were playing the game. I didn't unfortunately have the opportunity. But one of my game plans, if the game went totally sideways, which it did, but one of my game plans was to foul with players to intentionally get them kicked out of the game so that they weren't being hit with Mighty Blow.
Oh, I've absolutely done that with gutter runners and stuff. Yeah. Once they start taking hits, yeah, you want them out.
You can strategically get your players kicked out of a game for long-term gain, right? And so, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. And so I'm an extremely opportunistic fouler when it the opportunity has to be right. There are certain high value targets where if I've got a lineman and I can throw this hit and I've got enough assists there, and I'm not sacrificing enough of the board position, right? The thing about fouling on Snotlings, it's easier because you got the extra players. But a lot of teams, if you've got 4 or 5 people surrounding a dude, you're giving up a lot of real estate on the board.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the trade-offs, I think, for fouling. Now, that's because I usually approach most turns based off of like a territorial conflict, right? Like I'm keeping track of like where stuff is on the board. I'm trying to limit my opponent's moves and whatnot. And I think that's just like the fundamental differences between us as a players, right? Like you're looking to remove pieces for gain towards the end of it, and I'm like playing like a turn by turn thing. I think you probably need to play differently depending on whatever else has happened in the game, right?
Sure,
So,
and different teams. I don't think anybody's going to argue that I'm not the fouling guy in the league.
Yeah.
There was a season where I got 212 fouls
yeah.
over the course of, I believe it was 15 games.
Yeah. It was very impressive. I think it's a record that's probably going to stand for quite a while. So.
Right, like, yeah, I was using Black Gobbo, so I got 2 fouls, but I was averaging something like 18, 19 fouls a game. But you can't, there are some teams you just can't do that, right?
Yeah.
This last season, I played Elven Union, and I even had a sneaky get dirty player Elven Union line elf. But I found that, right, there's not a lot of times you can just risk one of your guys being kicked out.
Yeah, not a 100k elf, right? Like
no, you just can't. Even with sneaky get, even if it's only a 1 in 6 chance, it's hard to risk that sometimes because you need every single piece. You really only do it when you're already up.
Yeah.
And if you're playing an agility team, that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And also, if you really want to get the most value out of it, you need those other players to give you assist in the fouls. And some teams do not want their players all up and around their opponent's players. And I found that with Elvin. I put 5 guys up there within easy reach of my opponent.
Yeah, and guess what? They're all boxed in.
Yeah, that's 5 dead elves.
Yeah.
So no, I get it. But if you are playing one of the bribery and corruption teams, they can take bribes. Bribes really help you out.
Yeah, those help out the math a lot.
A lot. You don't want to lose your sneaky get to a turn 1 foul that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I've had a lot of games where the first foul he gets caught, I bribe it, and he never gets caught again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where if I don't have a bribe, I'm just not fouling anymore. Because I have a bribe, I get
Extra,
a dozen more fouls.
Yeah.
So that really helps. And I think if you're taking any kind of bribery and corruption team and you're not putting fouling in your game, you're really not getting the most out of that team.
Yeah.
And there are certain teams that aren't bribery and corruption, like Nurgle. You can. I don't think you can play Nurgle and not foul. You got 35 point, line, whatever they're called.
Yeah, the Rotters.
Yeah, the Rotters. They're not great at most things, but they're real good at stepping on stuff.
They're a tackle zone that can provide an assist to a foul, and they're a model that can foul.
Yes, and it's
plus you actually get incentivized. Like the thing about, like, say, Undead and Nurgle is that you get models during the course of the game if you do kill someone.
Which is awesome. It doesn't matter how you kill them. As long as they die, you get another dude. So fouling, normally you're looking at, hopefully I get rid of one of their players and don't lose one of mine. But with Nurgle and Necrotic, it's maybe I get rid of one of their players and get a player.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is somebody else you can foul, turn around and just foul with, right?
Which is awesome math. And both those teams are very resilient. You don't mind getting in your opponent's face, taking hits, stuff like you want to be fighting. So I do think it's team dependent.
Yeah.
But I think if you're one of those teams and you're not fouling, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. I think that's like Black Orcs. Like the reason they have grab is to help you throw better fouls, right? I think that's one of the undervalued things about the grab skill, being able to take their player, dump it behind, right? Like you throw the player to the side and then you follow up, right? Now that player's behind enemy lines, basically. You sacrifice very little on the positional front. You have a goblin come up, step on them. You keep them blocked back there, right? And you try to get your increment. And the goblins are 45 on Black Orcs, So you get some incremental gain that way.
Yeah, if you can pull your opponent's pieces out of position and then start fouling them without losing your position, a lot of times that's a dead piece.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because if you just foul it every turn, eventually you're going to get a removal. And if you've got a sneaky get, you got some bribes. There's very little risk involved, and you're just removing them. So yeah, I definitely think you should be fouling with Black Orcs. I know there were a couple seasons that I did not foul with his Black Orcs, and then one season he did, and he turned his whole life around.
Yeah, exactly. He's a completely new man now.
Yeah. He emerged from that season brand new.
Right. I think that's the key. The keys to fouling, if we can boil it all down to that, is positional, like, play on the field. Right. That's important. That's an important part of the mix. You can throw yourself out of position if you're fouling incorrectly. Right.
Yes.
You're trying to win the numbers game with fouling. The cost of the pieces matters quite a bit. The skills for fouling too, because like that's the thing about dirty player. Like, if you have just dirty player, that player is more likely to be thrown out than a regular player who's fouling, because you break armor more often because of the dirty player.
You're rolling twice as many. You get twice as many attempts to roll doubles. Yeah.
So like your mix of skills is important. And at one point, I actually thought Sneaky Get was like possibly the third best skill in the game. They nerfed it back when Sneaky Get,
when you could do like a drive-by.
Yeah, I actually thought, because that was one of those things. One of those keys was that positional stuff, right? Like, if you could do the drive-by foul, you're not sacrificing position, right? Like, you're not actually losing anything for this foul. You don't break armor, you didn't get caught, it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. So you get to throw the fouls. The skills matter a whole lot, I think, for the fouling game. And I think ultimately number of models. I do think fouling when you're behind is a way to catch up. It's a little
It's
risky.
a gamble.
It's a little risky, but I've seen a lot of games where you get like a key removal off a foul when you're behind, and that can swing some momentum your way.
I've also seen games where you're a little behind, and then you foul, and you're a lot behind.
Yeah, right? I think you gotta Blood Bowl players ultimately devolve into like those that are risk averse and those that embrace the risk, right? I think to be a truly great Blood Bowl player, you gotta embrace risk every once in a while. You can play like a really cautious, guarded game. But if you do that all the time, you're going to find yourself behind, and you're going to lose that type of game.
You got to know when to play smart and when to play stupid.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, all right, that's it. Straight from the master's mouth, the Scoundrels Guide to Dastardly Play.
Now, don't forget the all-important third step.
Okay.
Which is even more Ric Flair memes in the Discord.
After you've won the game.
After you've won the game.
Yeah. Make them remember. All right, so... we'll go through our previews for next week. We're not going to do like a full-blown every game, because we don't really have time for that this time around. But what we'll do, we'll hone in on a couple games, talk about what we think is going to make them interesting. Sure. And not to say that anybody's game who didn't make it into this isn't going to be interesting, because that's usually the case in a Blood Bowl games, that something's happening that I haven't seen before.
You get that write-off game where you're like, this isn't going to be... You hear about it,
and then you're like, "You should have seen this one." Yeah.
What even happened?
Yeah. So, and you have to like reconstruct the scene afterward, looking through tour play, like what occurred in this game. So, I think one of the games to watch for next week is going to be the Barbarians versus Rag and Bone.
I think that's probably the game of the week.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the one. If I only got to watch one game, this is the one I want to watch.
Yeah. Sean has 2 entries in the Book of Grudges because of playoff related losses. I actually think it may have even been this specific Black Orc team. Nice. I think Sean beat this 2 leagues in a row on kicks. in overtime. So overtime ended. They're still drawn. I have to go back and double check that, but I'm pretty sure Sean is the person who beat this team both times. So
there's one thing I know about Ide is that he does not get enraged by losing the kids.
Sean actually has enough money for Wilhelm, which is kind of really good against Black Orcs, right?
Those claws,
4 strength claws, reroll injuries on a broken armor once per game. That could be ugly, and you combine that with the mummies, and you're not necessarily outgunned in that matchup.
Yeah, I want to watch this one. I think that's going to be a good game.
Yeah, that's got the hallmarks of a great game for sure. What any of the other ones jump out to you?
Well, I'm always interested in a Juan game. I want to see him lose. So he's currently right now outside the door.
Yep.
Playing Clay. I don't want to spoil anything because there's nothing to spoil. But good luck, Clay.
Yeah. I think Lizardmen are actually really well situated against the stunty stuff. I think Lizardmen got hurt moving from the old editions into this one because their reroll total got nerfed. It went from 60k to 70k. I think Saurus's got a bump in price also. They got like a half step bump in price. So you don't get to start necessarily like 6 Saurus, 5 skink, 3 rerolls. I think that was like an option before. So I think starting Lizardmen is really painful. I don't think it's like mysterious that we're getting to see all these Lizardmen team jump into the league, since so many of them get to start with block this time around. Now Clay's carrying over his team, and so that means he's got some skills. So 4 strength block, 10 armor dudes are good into that game plan of I'm trying to knock you down and foul you, because you get 3 died less often, which means you go on the ground less often. And then your 10 armor means the Mighty Blow +2 is hurting you less often. So
and Clay has 3 Mighty Blow block players, which is, if they're basing a Snotling, right? Snotlings don't really stick around too often.
No.
But if you're basing a Snotling, that's a real good chance that you're going to take it off the pitch.
Oh, yeah. You get the splatter Snotlings left and right with that. So, I think you mentioned before the podcast, we were just doing our briefest amount of planning. You had the Josh and the John game, the Necromantic State Hellhound and the Rookwood Conspiracy. These are both carryover teams. Both have a chunk of skills. And I think that could be a slugfest for sure.
Yes. Like I said, Josh had some real bad dice rolling luck, but he's a pretty good player. John is a really good player. So yeah, I'm always interested to see what happens when you got 2 people who know what they're doing smashing into each other.
Teams like appropriately matched, right? Sometimes you end up with a mismatch, but
we got 2 mid-range teams. We got good skills on both sides, right? That's going to be a good one.
Yeah. And there's several players who lost in week 1 that I'm interested to see if they have like a bounce back game, or if we can start doing the NFL thing. We start hollering for a fired coach. Week 2 losses. Let's fire the coach. Bringing some new blood on the team.
Yeah, we got the both. Like I may not watch the games, but both Knox brothers are. I'm interested to see if Jim continues beating up little girls, and if Wayne continues losing to people I've never met.
Yeah.
You've got Coop, and that's going to be a good game.
Yeah. He's still getting money. I don't know what his team's going to look like because he hasn't played his week 1 game. But he's getting money, and so I don't know what he's going to do with that. That might just be, take inducements to get the team kind of functional. He's been experimenting with these stripped down tier 1 teams, play a little light on rerolls, intentionally try to keep your team value low to take some, kind of undercosted inducements to see if that can swing the game your way.
I play the extreme of that. I think Coop's a little crazy.
I think he's a little insane too. But yeah.
I'm not sure I go no re-rolls on Elves and Skaven.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of games last season. I think if Coop had a reroll, he would have won the game.
Now, he did go on like a heater. He had an absolute streak towards the end of the season.
Oh, absolutely.
Where he ended up third in the division. I actually have him as my dark horse. I think I had him as my dark horse for our division because, like there's a chance that with Skaven, right, like you get re-rolls in a couple of key places. You can have leader on your thrower. You like your Rad Ogre. It's not like you have to really worry about him never activating. You can guarantee that he activates. Now, whether he ends up doing what you need to, or whether he does enough damage to your team, to justify him being around, that's something to be seen. I do think the Skaven are a little bit more frail than the Dark Elves.
Yes,
you got way less armor, and you don't start with as many skills.
You can't DACA as easily either, right?
Yeah.
The Skaven are basically fuzzy elves, but they do have agility 3 on their linemen.
Yeah, and the linemen I think are like where the casualties kind of pile up usually. So because you have to give your opponent linemen to hit at some point during the game, right? And that can usually turn into a lot of dead rats. So
but yeah, depending on how that might rival the I'd Sean game for my game of the week. Maybe we got the Sean Ide for leg day game of the week, and you and Coop for the total body game of the week.
So there's some highlights right there. I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. Appreciate you coming on the podcast, Chase. I hope you had some fun.
Always a pleasure. Any chance I get to spend more time with Scott here, I'm going to jump at it.
So we are out of here this week. I forget the full spiel. Like and subscribe. We're on websites. We're everywhere. Wherever you get your podcasts, that's where we're at.
Smash that like button. Ring the bell. Subscribe.
And that's it. We're out of here. Appreciate everybody.
Later, nerds.